music going. I think today we're in a good place to make some final touches to this guy. I feel like everything's in a good spot. Just a little bit of refinement needed. So I don't know how much time we have, but I think today might be the last day for much of this. We could start to pick out details on the bird, on Artemis here. I'd like to dark line his beak, actually get some color laid in on his talons a bit more, and start to pick out some of these higher raised feathers. I don't think we're going to take the time to detail out 100% of the bird, so I think it's okay if we just focus in on a few key aspects. So here we can pick, like, from here up on his chest, everything around his eyes, beak as well. We're gonna change the color of this horse head on the pommel of the sword. I think that'll go a long way. And I'm pretty happy with the dark lining we have so far. I think we're gonna, I missed this skull, so we're gonna get that colored in. And we're gonna clean up this, I forget what this thing's called on their chests, but we're gonna clean that up. And the skulls. And then that's gonna be it for him. He's gonna be ready to get based. Because all things have to come to an end. Just laying out some parchment paper right now. Got a little excited when I refilled the old wet palette. Just dump that excess. And that'll be alright. Some of these curls that are popping up. Be in a much better spot. We got Ritual Casting. Well, good morning. How are you today? I don't think we need. I think we're zeroing in on some detail here, so I'm gonna step down to my size 2 and 1. Ritual says good. How about you? I'm doing all right. This weekend was fairly productive at the house. Ripped up some old carpet. The floors underneath were in way nicer shape than I expected, so I don't think we're going to have to worry about like sanding and attacking them immediately, so I'll just be able to leave them the way they are for a little while at least. Did you get in any fun projects? Let's start with, I'm going to start to get the reds out to touch this up. Welfare Heels coming in hot with subscription. Look out. Good morning, and how are you, sir? Love that name. Forever. Forever with that name. Ritual says, great stuff. Finding hidden problems is the worst part of a renovation. Oh, yeah, it's part of the surprise. I like to think of it like one of those mixed box of chocolates. When you get in there and you get to figure out, like, Are you the one that I'm going to hate? Of course you're the toffee that is just harder than life itself. Looking a little low here. Looking a little low. It's alright, we don't need a ton of paint right now. Gotta be able to get enough with just 2 brush loads, I'd say. Ritual says... Oh, Welfare says, look at me, I'm awesome. Yeah, Welfare, you're awesome. I'm just going to work a quick wet blend here on the palette. Nothing fancy. I'm going to actually grab a little bit more of this. Clean out my brush because you never want to have too much loaded up. What is that mini you've got on today? Well, this is the oh, he's something Kano Khan, something to that effect. He's one of the Primarchs for the White Scars. I'm painting him up for the subscribers this month. He's going to be a giveaway. I tried to do one last month and it's just never going to arrive. And with the whole COVID outbreak, I didn't get around to it. So I figured we'd paint something challenging. Oh, nice. We got paint all over ourselves just immediately today. How nice is that? So he's getting wrapped up pretty directly here. Games Workshop. It's a nice piece. But alright, so what I'm going to do... Let me touch this up here because it's bugging me. Just I'm going to rip these highlights down into these shadows a little bit. I'll add a little bit of a nice... just across the fronts here. Nice look. You can also do the same down here. Richard says, looking great. I only know Warhammer lore that appeared in the video games, unfortunately. Okay. Yeah, I'm not the best for it either. I dig the models. I love the stories. I am far from the authority on what they have going on. Does anybody have any thoughts on what they'd like to see this horse colored? I know I want to change it from this kind of auburn color, but I don't have a commitment just yet. Here across the chest, I don't know that it's that I disliked very much the colors I was using, but I'm not happy with them, so he's going to get a little rework here. And that probably means it's going to be a little bit of a back and forth until I figure out what I do like. So buckle up. I know this white's hard to look at and see any changes in, but that's just the camera that it is. Let me just respond to this in turn. 2 seconds. If you're wondering, Welfare is a lifetime friend. He's being rude to me by text. So, good on him. We're going to actually step down a smaller brush here. I usually don't. I typically just use the biggest brush I can, but I think we're already to such a refinement step that we just want to pick out these edges. I feel like the thing that I wasn't liking about this was all the pink that I was highlighting it with. I don't know why. I mean, pink is a natural progression for red, but it's just bugging my eye. So it's got to go. I think it's fine on the shoulder pads. I think it's fine on the lightning bolts. I just, for whatever reason, I don't like it on this. Guard Daddy, good morning. Well, how are you today? Hope you had a spectacular weekend. Bringing a little bit of the shadow color right in here. The biggest reason for that is you want to have some nice contrast. And if you don't, then you just have a big old pink splotch on here. And that's no good. So I'm going to grab some colors here that we can finish out these wings. And does anybody have a vote on what color this gentleman's hair should be? The head that Artemis arrived with? Possibly something interesting in that. And yeah, if nobody has any ideas about the horse would be nice. Turning Necromunda, what does Guard Daddy say here? Turning Necromunda Cawdor gangsters into conscripts. Welfare says should be Ric Flair's corpse. The Nache. That's interesting. Anybody in here ever use heavy-bodied paints? It's just a little raw sienna. It's a very ochre colored brown. Couple that with a little burnt sienna, which is a very red colored tone. For a brown, at least a little chocolatey tone. And I guess where we're going with the bird. I don't think we need the burnt umber. Let's see here. Guard Daddy says finished a company commander from Artel W. Ooh, they got so many cool models, that company. Let's check out what's going on with your Instagram here, Guard Daddy. That's what's up. Look at that pose. Power stance and all. That's legit. Give me just a second. Let me pull that up on my phone real quick. Give that the like it deserves. Get that mortar crew going. That's what's up. That's looking good. Ritual Cassie says that's an awesome figure, and the paint is amazing, Guard Daddy. It absolutely is. Guard Daddy says cheers. Yeah, they have some great sculpts. They have an incredible their whole lineup. All right, now these have had a chance to mix a little. One thing, even when you're doing fine details, you want to get enough paint in your brush to let it operate for a while. I've noticed a lot of people don't do that. We're just going to start, unlike before where we were just painting large areas. Now is the time. Now we're going to come in and we're going to start addressing independent feathers. I think that's so important. People tend to drill in way too early on a piece. Earlier when I asked if anybody in here uses heavy bodies while they're painting their miniatures, it's because they have different properties to the hobby paint. They tend to be more translucent. They have a ton of volume to them, so you have a working time with them, especially if your wet blending is quite long. And I like those properties. Different jobs. Clean that up a little bit. Guard Daddy says I'm still on Games Workshop paints, not branched out. G-Dub makes great paints. I tend to use a variety of paints that have different properties. You know, for me, it's less about brand and more about what the paint is made of. And a lot of times when people make videos, they just give you, these are the colors that they used, and you know, that's useful, but people tend to cling to that a little bit. What you're after is colors by brands that have a very similar property. So like here I'm using golden heavy bodied acrylics because a heavy body gives me, it's a little bit transparent. Good morning, Nash, how are you today? A little bit transparent, and it adds a ton of pigment for its transparency. Like, it's incredible with that. And also they are greater, whatever their medium is very good for wet blending. So instead of using like some kind of some kind of retarder to allow your paints to last longer, like a flow improver of some sort, I just use a little heavy body paint. To go along with that, they're really good for going over top of like the sketches or grisaille style paints. Or undercoats, I should say. But yeah, in terms of hobby brands, I really like Privateer Press. I like Vallejo. The majority of my paint collection is Vallejo paint. And then I have some Citadel paints from Games Workshop, and I got the P3 paints. These, I think everybody should own these paints. They're very, very good. What else? They're good, and they have unique color set to them. Where like the Citadel paints and the Vallejo paints and the Reaper paints all tend to just be like, pick a brand and you're going to get the colors that you're after out of them. Old bird get the colors it needs. That says good. Ordered more Reaper minis. Oh yeah, Guard Daddy says, I missed that, Chris. What was the must-have? You said, oh, Privateer Presses P3 paints. I really like that lineup. They make unique colors. If you look at any pro's desk, they will be, they'll have their camp. There'll be a Citadel house, there'll be a Reaper house, there'll be a Vallejo shop, like whatever it is, they'll be in a paint line. And because those three companies, they all have the same paint colors, So just pick one, and one that you like, one that's readily available in your area, and be that. Then go for the unique colors, things that they don't all provide. So I have some Reaper paints, I have some Citadel paints, even though I'm mostly Vallejo. I don't have any brand bias, it's just what is available to me, and I prefer the dropper bottles to the paint pots. That doesn't mean that I don't have like a lead belcher sitting here. It's a good color. No favorites, right? Lord 1983, thank you so much for that follow. Welcome on in. Let me check something real quick here. Oh, that's what it is. Let me see if I can adjust this a little bit and get our Corgi sound back. Oh, there we go. Let me know if the music is off going forward from that. There it is. Yeah, that's right. Nash says, I love Vallejo, got some Citadel and MIG, not a big fan of those. Yeah, MIG products are great. They're just different, And he says, and still have those old enamels, never using them again. Yeah, step away from those. Some enamels are good, but you have to be just fully aware of what they are, Guard Daddy says, I hear good things about Reaper. What's the hype about? Well, Reaper makes good paints. The hype is about the fact that they are sponsoring just every streamer that reaches out, for the most part, until they reach their budget cap every year. So if you want to be sponsored by them, you dedicate one of your streams per week to their products, and they give you a stipend based on how much your work is worth, whether it be volume of stream. Yeah, it's like they have different tiers. So depending on how much of your time you're committing to their sole products, they will give you an amount of money to spend at their store. And so people talk about their things. That's the hype. Their products are fine. So the Reaper Bones miniatures, Valrisa? Hopefully I'm saying that correctly. Thank you so much for that follow. Welcome on in. That's your hype. The Reaper Bones models are quite possibly the nicest miniatures for the cheapest price you're going to find. And for a lot of people, that's a great value. I gotta look at this real quick. There it is. I'm trying to make sense of the bottom of this foot. They are not great models. They are cheap and they're flimsy. Here, I got a Reaper Bone right here. They are what they are. Game Drama, thank you so much for that follow. So here's a Reaper Mini from their Bones lineup. Now they have their black line. They have other lineups that are great, and they're just not as soft. So whatever this plastic is, this mixture that they have, let's just look at this. Okay, super soft, kind of like melty look to the faces, to the hair on the horse. Like what they're made of is just rubbery. Now, if you're talking about being somebody that plays D&D and needs a bunch of models, this is perfect because these things can get painted up, sealed up, tossed in a box, and they're not going to chip on you. And in that way, they're awesome. They are perfect at that. I think they figured out a way to get you the most amount of miniatures for the least amount of cost. Holtz transistor. Hopefully, I'm saying that correctly. Yeah, just a little bit like vinyl in that respect. I don't know what the mixture is. I know it's a plastic. I would call it like a PVC kind of plastic, like a melted down PVC. But they're bringing it to people at a great cost. And if you're after just the most miniatures, or a bunch of miniatures that you want to have kids using or something like that, then good to go. Good to go in that respect. For what I do, I have very little need or desire to get a hold of them. Now their paints are awesome. Reaper paints are just as good as the Citadel line or the Vallejo line. They are a little more watery in nature. I shouldn't say watery. They are a little less thick out of the pot, but they flow nicely. Their liners are probably above the rest of them in terms of quality. They did an incredible job with their liners. Kurde says, okay, I'm always on the lookout for interesting sculpts for my guard army. I will tell you this, you're not going to find anything unique out of the Reaper line as far as the Bones models go. They are fairly generic, and they're going to look so when you get into them. If you're looking for things for your guard, you probably already are familiar with the usual places. Reapers also, other than the Chrono line, very much a fantasy lineup. Let's try to get down on this face here soon. Chaos Engine comes in and says, hey mate, how is the lockdown going? It's going pretty alright. Ripped up some carpet over the weekend. Good times by all. Here I'm just tidying up the skulls a little bit. Clean up around these temples. Skulls are all about contrast, right? New carpet or wooden floor. Yeah, we revealed the hardwood beneath. Our downstairs is now entirely hardwooded, except for a little bit of tile. It needs, refinished and everything, but it had been carpeted by the previous owners, and I'm going to say it had been carpeted most of its life because the boards are not in bad shape. There's a patch where there was an old cold air return, but so you can tell that the wood's a little bit different right there. But the finish isn't in a bad state, so we're able to walk on it until these quarantines let up and we can get a hold of a good sized floor sander and make a real mess of the house. Hopefully in a few weeks when it's more consistently warm, we can have the house open for letting that dust out. I don't know, does anybody in here have a good approach for attacking skulls? I think they add a little bit of contrast to them, so they're a little bit darker from the bottom, but they're a bit brighter from the top. Damn it, Daniel! Welcome on in. What does Danny say here? Daniel says, hey, what's happening around here? I just said, hey, Daniel. Painting some skulls, some skelly boys. Nash says, I'd rather mess up a 3 to 11 euro miniature from Reaper than mess up a $35 miniature set from Citadel, for example. Well, Nash, I'm going to tell you something that you probably don't say enough. You can't mess up a miniature unless you do it with a hobby knife or a file. You're not going to ruin a model by painting it. People worry too much. Just paint over it if you're not happy with it. In the rare case that you put too much paint on it, you can always take the paint back off, but you're not going to ruin them. Don't sweat that. Paint over things all the time. On my Sorsha bust, I repainted her jacket. I've painted her jacket 3 different ways. I like the white. I like the white a lot. I painted her shoulders, this non-metallic gold trim. I painted it 2 different ways. I painted her hair 2 different ways. But the jacket I definitely painted 3 ways. This is the third attempt. Budsky89, I've been trying to update my Lehman Russ with a bit more life, stuff like sandbags and equipment on them. I also got some bandage that I can turn into camo, camo nesting, or camo netting, but I don't really know a way to color it, and I don't have an airbrush. Any thoughts? For the camo netting, I would water down some paint, or go with like some heavy bodied colors, because you can mix up a lot of it, right? And I would treat it like you would tie dye a shirt, you know? How you would like add some colors and knot it off with like some bands, like in little chunks. Do it like that. You can soak it in the different colors. Chaos Engine says, yeah, you also did the leather strap a different way as well. I remember you deciding what you wanted to do for it. Yeah, you got to work back and forth. Yeah, I did too. Before I settled on the third color, and I also did the trim 2 different ways. You're right, because I remember painting these 2 different ways to settle on what I wanted, and it's still rough. Like, I haven't refined it as far as that particular piece of trim goes, but just play around with it. That's one of the biggest things that helped out with my painting, was realizing that you don't need to be afraid to like fix things. You get good at correcting mistakes, and in doing so, you get more efficient with the paint itself. Busky says, "Okie dokie, thanks. I'll go with that." Yeah, if you've never tried it, that'll be my direction to take. Like, I'm assuming you have something that's like some gauze pad or like cheesecloth, and I would just treat it like a tie. I don't know if you've ever done tie dye, but I'd just get some little cups and mix up the different camo colors you want to work with in them. Could look good. All right, we need to add a color to this as well. Something other than white. Nash says, make a pot with brownish watered paint, put it in after pulling the bandage a bit to spread the netting. That's my general technique. Alright, maybe you know something I don't. With the how to get the netting to look right. I've never done that before. I'm just guessing. Oh, there we are. Hiding it on me. Get that little bit in there. Daniel says, be right back. Just going to prime something. What are you priming up, Daniel? Something good? I say to the man trying to go away to prime something. But, you're going to tease me with some information. Possibly get this little loop to look a little bit different too. I know it could look nice. I'll use the colors that I've been using for the trim on the horsehair. That'll be nice. Cass Angels, is that pneumatic? Do you usually base coat everything, then do glazing, wet blending, or start from a glaze and do loads of coats? I tend to, so I don't really water my paints back very often. I'll do glazes. Glazing is utility, and I glaze over top of stuff to get it smooth all the time. Like for example, this red here, the finishing technique on it was a watered down red ink. Like 1 drop of ink to like 15 or more drops of water, and then glaze. But when I was doing the undercoat, I do very opaque paint. I tend not to water it back at all, and then to get it to build up. Guard Daddy says this is a Raging Hero sculpt. First female member of the Phalanx Hammers platoon officer Raging Hero sculpt. There you go. Oh, she got a ton of attitude, man. That's awesome. I dig that a lot. Daniel says, working on a ritual casting piece. Ritual casting? It's a name that is quite familiar. Might have dipped in and dipped back out from this morning. I think ritual started my day off. Oh. Stretches. Yeah, Chaos, there's a number of ways to go through and work with the layers. It depends on what you're doing, for one. Like, how do I want to answer that? I tend to do more work with the undercoating, the underlayment of the model, the sketch, people would call it, or what it is technically speaking is a grisaille. I do a lot more work with that when I'm working with nicer models. So the closer, like I paint the same way every time I'm working on a miniature, but the closer I get to display quality, the more I tend to step into the working my sketch up from what is really just a rudimentary of defining of the light volumes. So like here, this particular model is not a grisaille. This is just a highlight applied with my airbrush over black primer. And so I've selected that I want her face to be super bright, and so you can barely see the detail on it. That's how bright white it is. That little bit of overhead light shines so bright over it. So I have to shade it for you to be able to see. So we wanted to pick out here on the hammer, we wanted to pick out on her face in the front of the bike and tire, like it's so much of her. But the reality is, this has not been gone through and really picked out. If this was something that was going to be gamed with and it was going to sit on a shelf and be just a piece of art, I would have come through with my brush and I would do these smooth gradients from pure black to pure white everywhere. We would pick out and define each one of these little pieces of the engine. Boom, 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 boom. Now, if I go through and do that, now I'm working with very transparent paint when I come through and start to colorize the miniature. Then I'm working with, and it's not a glaze. Some people do the glazing. I can't sit there and do that for, my whole life. So it's just a transparent paint. I work with a very similar amount of moisture in the paint at all times, but you can see that it's not fully opaque. And so what it's going to do is it's going to allow, if I put the same color on the pants from here to here, it would be brighter up here than it is down here. And then when I do a wet blend and I take a darker color down here and a brighter color up here and I mix them in the middle, and the brighter color gets even brighter and the darker color gets even darker, now we're talking that next level. But it was probably a lot more than you were looking for, but that's the way of it. Budsky says, I've started a bit of revamp on my guard after 17 years. I've never been into extras and bases, but I think they deserve it. Repaint, giving the tanks some more life in a World War II style, and bases are being themed in a World War I muddy battlefield to represent the fall of Cadia, or Cadian 8th. That's pretty legit, though. I think for me, the bases really tie the whole miniature together. Just like you can spot all kinds of issues with a model before it's done, the moment you start to complete it, things start to come together. And some of the issues that you had, you can't see anymore. And I think a good base goes even a step further with some of that. Just, it's a funny thing to say, I'm feathering out these transitions on the feathers, but that's what's up right now. Now that we put those highlights in, I'm just grabbing the back of the feather instead of the edge. Maybe in a little bit bigger spot here on these lower feathers. Just adding a little tonal variation into these little pieces. That's what it's all about. Giving your eyes something to actually look at. KS Engine says, gotta feather those feathers, yo. That's right. That's exactly right. Transitions. That's what it's all about. I wonder if this will look silly out here. Let's see. Ooh. See if that'll work. I'm not too mad at it. Clan Wolf, good morning, sir. Hope you are well. Hopefully the weather's breaking up your way. It's been kind of odd down here for the season. Everything's been weird this year, if I'm being honest. Just shoot everybody straight. All right. where were we? We were going to do the tones that we use on the feathers along this horse pollen. So let's have a peek here. Where are we at? We got them turned. We're facing the right way. So I'm going to do the purest of all of my shadow tones, which is actually present only in the tips of these, on every other little piece here. Oh, should have thought about how small these were before we committed to some nonsense like this, huh? Nobody warned me. They're like, hey, Nomadic, those look a little small for all this business. Laserita? Hopefully that's correct. Good morning. Thank you for the follow. Welcome on in. We are trying to pick out some details here. Make those final adjustments that bring the model to life. Give them some character. Something like that. It's the streamer's curse. You're gonna get some names, you're gonna disrespect them without meaning to. I'm sure everybody in here has fallen victim to my snap assessment of their name. Look at these little things. Didn't do a good job. No problem. Hey, if you want to correct me in the chat, I'd be down. I'll try my best. And if you are yourself a painter and you use Instagram or Imgur or something of the like to share your art, we'd love to have a look. We're greedy like that. We like to see what people are working on. If anybody else, for that matter, is working on anything that they haven't already put up, get it in there. We want to see. You all can only enjoy watching me refine tiny little details for so long, you know. Pippa884, thank you so much for that follow. Welcome on in. Hope you're having a good day. Is it too on the head to paint it like a white chess piece? Horse, that is. Since nobody else had any recommendations, I think that's what we'll try. Ritual Castings, give us just a moment. Let me get some of this paint on my wet palette so it can get to the right call it moisture. I don't know what you want to call it. Like get it humid. Shameless plug incoming. Oh, look at the kabuki mask. What is that? Is that what that's called? The little demon masks that they have. Well, for Heels, did you want to say moist? I did want to say moist. To moisten the paint. To use a trigger word. Should trigger everybody. Ritual, that's a beautiful piece.
if you want to plug your site, go for it. Get it in there. Alright. Now that we have get the paint flowing correct. Like I was saying earlier, I don't really water down my paints, but it's because I use a wet palette, you know? And it just changes things because of that. I don't know why I didn't consider painting this up like a chess piece earlier. I just didn't. So here we're just going through and actually applying a second coat of this. Not in a too thin coats kind of way, but you really are trying to get coverage. Some of the paints or colors just don't provide that. So Laserita says, I'm actually an artist, but I don't have anything on the internet. Not comfortable. Okay, well, I get that. I share my stuff, but I don't know that it's that I'm ever comfortable with my art. I think it's more I like to share my works in progress a lot. I don't know if anybody in here has ever noticed this, but I don't really post a lot of my finished work. Very rarely. They're all in some stage of work in progress. And I think it's a lot of the art that people post. I'm not trying to say that my stuff's on par with some of the greats, but I think they show this mystical thing that is unattainable, but they don't ever show their process. And so you don't realize that just 6 hours, like they've put probably 40 hours into a miniature like that looks so pretty, and they only show you the finishing product, and not that it looks in a given state for 35 of those hours. And so I like to post my whips. Kind of peel the curtain back on some of the techniques that they're using. Coming in a little bright for my taste on the back of this. Ritual says, I'll leave the plugging to Daniel since he'll be selling prints, but if you guys have access to a 3D printer and can use the discount code DAMNIT20 for 20% off my back catalog. Oh, there you go. Yeah, support Daniel, support Ritual. There you go. Guard Daddy says, get Imgur account, upload, but set to private. Yeah, if you want, if Lazaretta wants to, that would absolutely be an option, Guard. I think it's, yeah, well, I mean, I guess it's, if you want to share your art with people like that, I suppose that is a way to do so. But if you're uncomfortable doing so, then, don't worry about it. It's all good. I think you should, because I find, people looking at my stuff is very helpful for me. I get a lot of feedback in that way, because I'm not just trying to paint my things to paint them. I'm out here trying to improve some of my techniques. And so if I encounter somebody, like for example, I do a lot of wet blending when I paint, as opposed to simple layering. I do not mean to in any way suggest that layering is basic and simple and not at all complicated. It is, but those are me misspeaking. But when I'm doing the wet blends and I'm trying to get things to work together, I have oftentimes a lot of questions about pigments and paint densities and consistencies, and these things don't typically come up. And so when I can encounter an artist that does more of that than I do, I try to share and get some feedback, A few more little highlights in here. We're going to call him a pony. additional coats necessary. There we are. Let me catch up here. Ritual says to Lazaretta, just know that there's always going to be people who will appreciate your art. Absolutely. So all my friends love it, but still shy. Oh yeah, you can. That's fine, and that's fine. And do not feel like this is a pressure thing. I just know there's so many wonderful people that make beautiful art, and the last thing that a good piece of art needs is to be shelved away and hidden. That's my thing on it. And to Guard Daddy's suggestion, by doing things in that way, making it private if you're not comfortable with general public seeing things, and just chiming in like they can occasionally do, you can do it in here with other artists and like-minded people in a fairly safe way. Like, for example, if you have a look down below, I have my Instagram, and in there you'll find all kinds of works in progress and things that, you know, are rugged and I'm working on, and things that I'm thinking about, and they're not. I think I do good work. I do try very hard to get things the way that they are, but I'm not trying to front like I don't do that, but it's just a different thing. A lot of people only post their best foot forward, you know. Here's a link to my Instagram if anybody is interested. We also, not to shamelessly plug a thing like this, but we also do a Patreon if anybody wants to support the efforts that are going on here in the stream. Guard Daddy says it will give you experience of photoing work to go online. That's a skill in itself. That's another thing I don't do. I don't stage anything. You can tell if you look at my Instagram, you can be like, oh, he picked this up over top of whatever he was working on that day and took the picture. So everybody got to find their own way in that respect. I don't have a motorized Lazy Susan for product display over top of the darkest background I can find. Just popular. It's a popular thing to see. We just have to find a solution to this face. We're going to be out of this model sooner than you think. Just gonna clog this up here. Alright, blot that out. That's not too bad. Perhaps we'll... I don't think that'll look right black. Gotta come up with something better than that. Because we're better than that. Go a little red rust. And yeah, photographing miniatures is an art all in of itself. And speaking of the Patreon, do more than just in part of the work people have been supporting in there, and the subscribers on Twitch and everybody that's been in here on a daily basis. I actually have some old camera equipment, and the nicest thing that I own as far as the camera goes is a lens. And this week, later on today, I'm actually ordering a modern camera body so I can use this lens to stream and to actually answer some of these questions I've been getting regularly on different techniques and how I approach things. We're going to throw it up on YouTube, and we'll see if it gains any traction. Otherwise, stream's going well, and everybody seems happy in here. So we're just going to kind of add on to it. We're not replacing anything. So to paint this dead face, I'm going to take a little flesh tone here. This is just some Cardic flesh. This is not in any way. I mean, anybody that's been in here, when they see me paint skin tones, they know I mix it up out of some primary colors. So one thing we're going to do is we're going to start with a flesh tone that's a little more generic, because it's a little simpler that way. And we're going to not have a lot of red in it. So I'm going to use just that base as my red, as opposed to having the yellow and the green and the blue all the same. Because we don't want it to have very much life. We want it to be fairly dead. Where's my blue? Somebody come in here and take my blue? Might have been a cat. Cat come take the blue? You gotta watch them. They'll do things like that. Lazaretta says at Nomadic, how do you use your wet palette? Yeah, this is just a large Masterson's Stay Wet. Bear with it. With a piece of parchment paper on it. Nothing fancy in that respect. Pretty simple. Things that I do, just keep it wet. That helps. And then if you have something more specific, I can run into that. That might be a good idea, to do something more complete answer, like a video, show like the different things that I do. Wanted to find something here. I had a model. Whenever that blue is gone. That's what I think. I think that blue is in the next county. I have to find new blue. But yeah, Lazaretta, if you think of something more specific about the wet palette, like have you ever used one and you're just looking to gain a little bit more knowledge about it, or have you never used a wet palette at all? I kind of frame my answer that way because it seems like a simple thing, but it's kind of got a lot going on. The palette. Just adding a little cobalt blue to the palette here to mix up into this flesh, and we've waited too long to add white to it, so. Yeah, so you making a custom palette? And you're saying you're using a sponge? You all are gonna have to bear with me a moment because I've got to mix these colors up, and so it's gonna be a lot this way. Yeah, with a paper. Okay, so there's nothing wrong with that. I struggled a bit with getting my my sponge to work correctly when doing that. I just used so much blue, it blew the whole thing out. The blue blew the whole thing out. It killed out my flesh tone. Oh, silliness, I say. Yeah, the sponge density matters a lot with that. So the Masterson's comes with a very thin but super dense sponge, and I think that's the ticket. So if you're making them on your own, you said you're an artist. Are you working with miniatures and acrylic paints? I try not to make assumptions in this respect, so if I'm being silly, just say yes, silly. Here I'm adding a little fluorescent blue to the mix because there's purples in our skin, but only in like the deepest acrylics, yes. So what I might recommend, and if you're working with miniatures, you might have access to like blister pack foam. That foam is the density you're after, really. So if you want, they make a thing called sponge roll or sponge paper. And what you can do with that is cut it to size for whatever container you're using. And that will treat you a lot better than a super thick traditional sponge. Set that Cardic flesh. The ones to clean, yeah, the sponge cloth like you would find at a Walmart or something like that, because or roll sponge, something to that effect. I forget which one it's called, but that dense nature that it has and how thin it is, you can get a lot of water in it for a very little bit of space. I'm just going to keep adding a color into this until I blow the whole thing up again, huh? We got Blood Angel Callum. Hello, everyone. How's your Monday? My Monday is going very well. I hope everybody else is holding up all right. Good to see you in here. We need just a little bit of green to really set this thing off. So we're going to use a little of this light green. Whoa, there it is. Yeah, I think the sponge is the biggest part, and I just use like Reynolds Wrap parchment. They sell it in a roll, they sell it in a sheet. It's good to go. Let's switch this up. Where? Huh. Let's see how this goes. Alright, we got that green now. Let's get that in the mix. The thing about green, blue, and yellow, you get this nice desaturated tone. We want them to look extra sickly. Let's get them in here. Actually, let's start off with this bluer base. Because maybe it was an accident when I did it initially, but we'll add some purple to it. Maybe he hasn't been dead too long. Bear with me as I get this laid down here. Be a little bit sloppy around the hair. Callum says, I'm trying my first 40k game. It's Blood Angels versus Death Guard. Are you playing Blood Angels, Callum? Be a real twist. Shyamalan wouldn't even consider that twist if you're playing the Death Guard. Nope, I'm playing both. Oh, nobody wants to play with me. Why is that? Is it because you're under quarantine? Okay, nice wet base here. We're just going to add that next tone. Ew, we gotta look super sicky. Callum says, yes, I'm quarantined and the only person interested in minis in my house. I know there's a number of people that have been playing on Tabletop Simulator because of the nature of the thing that we're stuck in here. A little more yellow to it. It's so weird, like mixing up these facial tones in like the wrong way, but he can't look healthy down there, can he? Might look like a little puppet if he does. Let that dry just a bit. Add a little different color to his hair here, since we're getting a lot of yellow in the skin. Callum asks, are you painting white scars? Yes, this is a white scar. He's one of their Primarchs. I think he's a Primarch. He's definitely a Primaris. He's a named guy. Something Kano Khan. Something to that effect. He's really cool. I think, at least. Let's get him. He's going to be one of our subscriber giveaways. He'll be the subscriber giveaway very soon. It's just been a whole thing lately, trying to get everything to a good state. Through this whole mess. I think we're going to back down the frequency in which we do the drawings, but I think he's looking pretty good. Tended to be tabletop. I think the bird did bring him the head. I like to think that they're currently in combat with some Tau, and Artemis here brings him back this head. He's like, Artemis, where did you find a human head? Artemis don't care. This arm a little bit. Let's see here. Let that dry a little bit and come back to it. Paint a little bit of green here into his face. Some of this blue back into the sunken portions. For whatever reason, I have this idea that maybe I don't want all the life to have drained out of the model, or the little face here. Like maybe he, I don't want him to have been dead very long, you know. Such a spooky piece in that respect, but ew, super creepy. Pascal Rosa. Rosa? Rosa. You corrected me on your name pronunciation one time, and now I'm second guessing myself at this early hour. Good morning, and how are you today, sir? How would you paint a freshly removed head? Somewhat. Should be more alive near the bottom. What do we think? More jaundiced? Rosa, yes. Never second guess myself again, sir. If I just paint the whole thing lime green, what do you think? Probably a mistake, eh? Perhaps not. The question is, where do you leave the life? And where do you take it away? CG Mini Painting, morning Nomadic and chat. Well, good morning back at you. How are you today? Hopefully everybody's had a wonderful weekend. Pascal, if you've had any projects you've been working on lately, share it up with everyone. For that matter, if anybody else has anything else they're working on, please, I more than invite you to share. It's always nice to draw inspiration from what other people have accomplished, especially if I've been being, not as productive or inspired lately. It's always good to see that other people have been. Oh yeah, Pascal's always got some amazing projects in the work. Kind of sketching some spooky highlights here, and then we'll get that pulled up, Pascal. Yeah, he's not looking so hot now. Check this. It's fairly opaque yet. Maybe a little water on that. Better. Start this glaze back. Way too much moisture. Way too much. Okay, clean that up. Alright, let's get a look at what Pascal's doing. It'll be way better than whatever this back and forth looks like. We got Genuine Vision. Did I miss Genuine? Oh yeah, Genuine with the shouts out. Good morning, Jan. Yes, Pascal, I saw this. This lady's looking super good. I love your skin tones, especially with females. I tend to darken them up too much. If anybody's looking at Pascal's work and you see those cool purples and greens that happen in the tones as they build up to a very, very bright white, I want so badly to get better at that. Like when we look at what I have going on, I have a subtle transition here from like this nice bright peachiness into the shadows, but my darks aren't as dark and my brights aren't as bright. And yeah, those purples and greens, and you get all those colors throughout that transition. That's where you want to go. You got to have a direction in life. That is beautiful, sir. This is probably as good a skin tone as I've ever laid down. But not that I'm unhappy with it in any way. I think it's an excellent example of where I am as an artist, and I think we only have up to go from here. What do you think about my volumes, sir? Are we posing them in the right locations? Have we embraced the spheres? And if not, tell me and I'll DM you. It's all about the spheres. Alright, let's start tying these tones together. Get this spookiness. I don't know what made me go with this lime as much as I did, but I'm feeling it. Gonna lurk because hungry AF. There you go, Pascal. CG Mini says weekend was good, just waking up. There you go. Everybody out there living that quarantine life. I'm one of those super essential personnel, and I gotta go into work. So we have probably another 40 or so minutes before I have to hop out of here. So we got plenty of time to continue working on this face and sharing art. Pascal with the host, thank you so much, sir. Jan, how have you been, sir? I wasn't trying to ignore you or anything. Instead of purpley, I think I'm going to try and pack some blue in here next to this green. What do you think? Could that make a nice shade tone? Oh, my nose is itchy. Allergy season is very unkind to me. So since the reds and purples of a life, maybe having that sunk in there might be a little ghoulish. Very little red to it. Januine says, doing okay, pal? Trudging along. I think we all are. I think that's all any of us can do. The long, somber trudge of a defeated man now. Guard Daddy says, this is my morning. Guard Daddy's been working on some of these fun variant sculpts for Imperial Guard. Oh, look at the little ones working out. That's awesome. Sharing the hobby. Maths and minis, homeschool and hobby. There you go. Over 60, good morning. How are you today? Hopefully you are well. You had a good weekend. Poor nose. We're just working on this super spooky skull that Artemis has delivered us. Trying to get things to look extra dead in here. 3 days no work. In a good way or a bad way? I gotta ask that right now because a lot of people have been involuntarily taking some time off. Just packing a little bit more blue into these regions. Guard Dad. Yes, Lazaretta, that is true. It is super lovely to see the little ones working on stuff and enjoying the hobby. Get that temple. That's what's been bugging me, the temple. Over 60 says, got my new desk and my Reaper minis. That's cool. What Reaper minis did you pick up? A lot of people ordering Reaper stuff lately. Did you get more bones or any of their pewter stuff? I guess pewter. Any of their white metal stuff? Just pulling these highlights here. Yeah, that looks good. Pull across the brow here. It's odd for me doing it like this because I feel like I need it to have just a little bit of life to it. Because if I can manage to make him look like it's draining from him, it'll be far creepier to look at than if he looks cartoonishly dead, for what that's worth. I don't know what the answer is. Over 60, I saw your comment here. Give me just a moment and I will read it. 6D, 12D, 20D, etc. Cartoon day. Oh, yeah. So you got some D6, 12, 20 to paint. I will post them when I'm painting. Yeah. Those little dudes, we actually had somebody suggest that we should do a paint along on the stream, and I think the D20 we might be the one that we select to do that. Yeah, I got the D12 sitting here. I know the D20 is around. He's not handy, but yeah, I think we might try to paint up the D20 as a thing here next month, if you want to save off and paint along. Just continue to fill over these, kind of glaze somewhat, sketch over top of these highlights. How's he looking? A little spooky? Check the dilution here. Fairly. Get a little bit of this back in the skin. I do enjoy the effect this lime is giving me. What do we have here? Man, everybody's blowing up this morning. I always get cautious. I'm going to check my phone when it's early morning, because at this hour it shouldn't be going off unless something's going on, but I suppose it's just Instagram stuff, so no big deal. Oh, you're almost done with them. That's cool. Just mixing up like a traditional pinky highlight for a skin tone. And let's see what we can't do with this. Stick to these outer ridges. Pull where the highlights would be. Just gently kind of somewhat stippling the paint down because we have such a finite amount that's going to actually get deposited. Always pulling towards the highest edge. And then we'll somewhat pull it together. But yeah, over 60. That was something that came up in the Patreon feedback, was wanting to do some kind of paint along, and so I figured some of the Reaper minis might be nice as they are very low expense. They wouldn't put anybody out if they wanted to collect them. And the dice, you know, we have people that play a multitude of different games in here, and the dice seem like a pretty neutral kind of scheme. I know they're fantasy based, but we all love dice. Maybe we'll start with a D20 and then move up. I hadn't really shared that with anybody outside of the subscribers just yet, but I think everybody could join in. Won't necessarily be in the whip feedback section if that's what you're after, but we'll good art is good art. We'll get it shared up. Yeah, he's starting to look a little ashen now. Let's get a little more white in this. Maybe even a little bit of green. This is like a pale pinkish green thing going on here for our highlight tone. Kind of jaundice him. Pip-Boy would like to share something I'm working on yesterday. Let's have a peek. What do we got here from Imgur? Ooh! Now that blue is looking too good against that green. What an excellent color selection there, Pip-Boy. That is beautiful and well executed. Get that proper tarnish going on with your metallics. That's awesome. If anybody wants to have a look at that, take that link. Things are happening in there. Another nice thing about that nice vibrant blue you selected is when you're gaming with them, they'll read better because of it. That's why the brighter colored armies always photograph well on the table. Like Kachikins just don't read super well based on what they are. Doesn't mean they don't look good. They do look good. The thing is, they just don't look great at like 5-6 feet. We got Nighthawk 2020 with the follow coming in, hooking us up, making that corgi wiggle. Welcome on in. Thank you. We got the Evil Honk says, I need to hugs. I'm super indecisive. What's going on with this indecision? We got Maid Run. That's excellent work, Pip-Boy. It absolutely is. Pascal says, looking crisp. And it certainly is. That blue is tight. We got the Evil Honk says, I just got money from my birthday and I don't know if I should get Tau or Sisters. Oh, more plastic. I'm partial to the Tau. You couldn't, excuse me, I don't know if you could be sitting there straddling two more different styles though. Not that that's a problem or anything. This is what I do in a moment like that. You've got two decisions, Evil Honk. This is what I would do. I would say heads are Sisters and tails are Tau, and then flip the coin, but decide which one you want it to be in the air. That's your gut check. It'll tell you what you really want. Nighthawk says, looking awesome, man. Evil Honk says they're both so cool. They are so cool. You're not getting them to play or just to paint? Pip-Boy says, thank you guys. Yeah, you should feel good, Pip-Boy. That's looking tight. I'm kind of partial to a Nurgle myself. Got the Electro Funk. Now that's the name of the day right there. Electro Funk, welcome on in. Thank you so much for that follow. Evil Honk says, both. I'm still very new to painting, so it's a bit scary. Well, perhaps a smaller allotment of either. They're super different to paint. Their play styles in game couldn't be more different. The Evil Honk with the follow, trying to give the Electro Funk a run for their money. In terms of name, both coming in hot. Electro Funk says you'll get way more bang for your buck buying Tau, but Sisters models are insanely detailed. That's some good insight right there. If you're looking for more detail, that's just the thing, you know. They're both so very, very cool, but they're super, super different in terms of like what they are comprised of. You know, the Sisters have that beautiful. We talk a lot in this hobby about contrast. You know, bright colors versus dark colors. So you have your highlights and your shadows. You have warm colors versus cool colors, and then you have the sculpts themselves can build such a beautiful amount of contrast. Tau aren't super contrast in the way that they're built, but they are panel. I shouldn't say panel 9 times, I'm sorry everybody, but they are a bunch of busted up metallic panel lines. Now, Sisters have that, they're all female and they're all sculpted with a little beauty to them in that respect. Then you have that cold, hardened armor on top of that form and those flowing, vibrant robes. So you get contrast built into it right there, and then you get to paint it. I think they look awesome. For me, playstyle wise, I like the Tau, and I enjoy that Gundam style look. But Pascal Rosa says, painting wise, here's some considerations. Tau are massively a lot of the same. It may get bigger, but in the end it's very repetitive. Sisters are dauntingly detailed though. That's true. Electro Funk says, yeah, playstyle fluff, especially aesthetic, they're all about as opposite as it gets. We got the Flash and Dash 2000. I heard that Sisters Army costs 2 times as much as any other army. Yeah, but, in today's game, you're not necessarily playing 100% of one thing. You're very commonly playing little bits of a handful of different armies. So Sisters might just be a little seasoning on what you might otherwise be playing. chatted our way through the little bit of paint that I had there. Which might have been a good thing, because upon a second look, I don't know that I'm super happy with this. Let's try this tone. See, now that's more spooky. Ghoulish. I'm just picking these details again here with just a little bit of a combination of our flesh tone and this ghoulish color of lime. What do we think? Looks a little bit like Mike Myers. We're gonna call it. The Evil Honk says, I'm a little girl myself and I love the ladies, but I think their faces look bad. Well, they are that is another thing to consider. For a lot of artists, the skin tones are a deal breaker, and oftentimes you'll see people going out of their way to modify and add a helmet. So yeah, if you don't like painting faces, or you're not happy with the faces that you see, that's a consideration right there. Don't like their face look bad. Also, I don't like how the Repentia look, but love how they play. I'm not familiar there. You're saying it's not that different. Sisters, you pay $320 for 750 points. The special book extras, yeah, for Tau 280. Okay. Well, you seem to be up on that. Yeah, sadly, I mean, I could tell you the reasons why I like the Tau, and I can also tell you what I like about Sisters, but the truth is, and you know this, you gotta make your own mind up on that front. I can't tell you how to spend your 280 or your 320, you know. And for $40 difference, even if it was the more expensive solution, you got to be happy with what you're buying. Most of this paint off of here, because I will ruin everything very quickly with this. Here we've added just a spot of Payne's Gray, and we're going to sink these back just a touch further. Let's see here. The eyes are the most important thing for tying a face together, as far as like its liveliness goes, and so I think for here we're just gonna black them out with a little bit of this Payne's Gray. God, that thing's kind of tough to look at. Maybe we shouldn't have done all that. Oh God, super spooky. Pascal says, oh sorry, I was thinking of Retributors. We got Flashing Day. It says Tau is much easier to paint than Sisters because of the details, but if I was in your position, I would go with Tau, but that's my opinion. Yeah, you got to pick what you want to pick. The other thing to consider is the thing that you are more into will be the easier thing to paint. You know, people might ask, like, what's the easiest army for me to paint? That's what I'm going to get into. Like, you know, common consensus is it's Necron, but the reality is, if you're into what you're painting, it will be the easier thing to paint. You know, Tau is super repetitive. Yeah, it may be less detailed, and you may be able to go through and do these things, but if you don't enjoy the monotony of going through and just cookie cutter, boom, 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 that can get old. That can get real old, especially across the whole army. And you got to remember, you're just thinking of the suits. You're not thinking of the Fire Warriors or the Breachers. You know, those will throw you for a loop in a hurry. They surely will. Pascal says, if you're not hooked on Games Workshop, you could always have a look at Raging Heroes models. They have excellent alternatives for sisters. What's the other one? Is it Art W, Artle W? What's that other one called, Pascal? Ooh, that's gonna bug me. That's gonna... The Electrofunk says Artle W and then also Wargame exclusive. Yeah, there you go. If you want to check some stuff out. And the thing that might be helpful would be to pick up like a model of either. Like, I don't have a White Scars army to paint this guy. Like, grab something nice. Grab something from each one as like a one-off and just see which one you like to put together, which one you are having a better time with. You'll figure it out pretty quick. And then you'll have one that'll be really nice to have on your shelf. And another one that'll complement your army quite nicely. Oh, Artemis is looking super evil now. Good boy. Pascal, is it the lower dot that should be the larger of the two? Or should I leave the bottom of this alone? Sudsy Sutherland! Your name always makes me feel like you're a proper gen. Proper. It's a gem. I think it's a laser beam. I think it's like a rangefinder. It looks like he's trying to detect somebody's power level before he goes in for the swoop. So I flipped a coin. Did your gut tell you which one you wanted it to be while it was in the air? That's how you'll know. Oh, man. My nose keeps running. Pascal says, then the higher one should be the bigger one. Not per se bigger. Should be brighter, not per se bigger. Okay. Okay. I'll tell you what, that's what it's going to be. Gregersman, good morning. Hi now. Evil Honk says, I couldn't choose midair. It landed on Tau. I wasn't happy. I flipped it again. Flipped Sisters. Wasn't happy. You're dead. Yeah, it sounds like it's time to embrace the greater good and play Age of Sigmar. Actually, I think the right answer is order a really nice bust and paint that. Welfare comes in hot with the plate. Just sounds like you're playing Ultramarines now. Over 60 says still have work to do. Evil Honk says I already do. I'm so bad. Oh, you're playing it all. You having all of it. Cake and everything. Sudsy's up. Oh, you got the whole crew over 60? Look out. Is the wizard the D20? Where's the D20? The green one is the D20. I think that's the one we're going to start off with for the paint along. I think that's the right ticket. Pascal says play chess. There you go. Gregersman says I'm actually looking for a nice bust, but I can't seem to find one I love. Oh. What style are you after, Gregersman? Suzy says can't go wrong with all the DACA. Ooh, you're an orc player now. There you go. Gregersman says I'm feeling something sci-fi, to be honest. Something female and sci-fi? If you are, you might check out Neko Galaxy. I've got some really slick busts if you're after female sci-fi look. If you're after something a little more masculine, I don't know off the top of my head. You can always, if this will not be sci-fi related, but you can always check out Fur Miniatures, FER. They have a ton of really slick fantasy and historical models. Pascal says, but honestly, Nomadic gave the best advice. Try to get one of each basic troop, paint them, figure you can muster painting those in droves. That's the biggest thing, especially if you're collecting an army and not something to just paint. Because for me, if I got into painting something, I was like, oh, this guy looks cool. You know, for $40 or less, you can pick up a nice model and have it, and that's fine. And then he goes over here. You know, if I get bored with this, or, you know, this one's, like, we're pretty much done here. But, like, whatever it is, like, you can just set it down, work on another one. Like, I enjoy games like this that are like one-off models you can start picking up and working on, and they're all fun and games. But when you're in an army, it's another animal. Now you're in for the long haul, regardless. And so if you don't enjoy painting their form, that's not going to be any fun at all. And the other thing is to bring up here is not to assume that you understand. Ritual Castings makes some pretty cool stuff. I don't know, Ritual, do you have any sci-fi stuff? Sudsy says, but then I got hooked on Kill Team, and now I collect a bunch of basic troops support. That's true. That's a good point. There are different game, I don't want to say forms, game types, game styles. I think we're going to paint this one up next. There's a very prominent artist that decided to put out a little tutorial, a little paint along for how they paint. And I was thinking maybe we could see how close we can get it following their instruction. Is that something people would be interested in? Paint with a very similar style to me is really the appeal here. I think we might do that. It says I've got a sci-fi bust as part of a larger model. You can take a look at that if you want to link it up there, Ritual. Well, then maybe it's the kind of thing where you pick up the Tau, but then collect some sisters. Maybe get a couple one-off nicer pieces or specialty units that are sisters of battle and paint them up for yourself. Nobody's saying you can't have some sisters of battle and some Tau. Since we have a few minutes here, I think we'll detail out one of these skulls. But where, oh where did my off-white go? Pascal, did you take my Men Off-White base? Somebody did. Why would I lose it? I wouldn't misplace the Men Off-White base. I may have thrown the highlight in the trash, but that's just me. There it is. We got it. We good. We're good. We're good. Oh, Gregersman, what are you doing? We painting these? Is it going to be a paint along? We having a paint party? Paint party? That's what we're going to do. We'll paint that. Mitchell Cass got the links. Oh, he's a super spooky, what do you call it? Like a Roman warrior? I dig that helmet a lot. Gregersman says, I literally pulled it out of my box of shame yesterday. Shame. We got here. We got Matty Chains. Thank you so much for that follow. And having such a fun name to say. Pick out this little detail here. Oh, what's that? You didn't think you were going to paint this little skull? Well, you're painting it. Paint it right now. There we go. We have here the Chemical Fencer. Good morning. Thank you so much for that follow. Welcome on in. Just mixing up a little wash here. Glaze, so to speak. Something for the Skelly boy here. Need to pose the full model, but I'm lazy. Ritual. We got Motor City Ray in the building. Motor City Ray, good day. How are you here in the final hours? Ray shows up. He pulls people out of the warp. We got Jan chilling in here. Let's see if we can't get something in this skull here. Oh, God. Oh, no. A little bit of highlight goes a long way here, especially in this southern hemisphere of his leg. You don't want to go too bright. We'll leave it at that. I feel a lot better if these little eyes would get darker. Damn it, Daniel.com. Alright, bear with it. Repping that Daniel gear. Just a few little details to this. Motor City Ray, shouting out to Genuine. Ritual says, I only sell the STL files for my sculptors or give them away as part of Patreon as I don't have the capacity time to sell physical prints. Understood. Nakaruki. Hopefully I said that correctly. Rocky Rookie. I don't know how to pronounce this, but I'm trying to be respectful. Hello, good afternoon. Which is what he has over his head? What, up here? Up here? The Scullies? Gregersman says to Ritual, do you also have a store for your STL files? As I do. Gregersman does have a printer. Look out. Sorry if I was misunderstanding your question about the top of the head. Yeah, it does look like a lamppost, doesn't it? Yeah, there's 3 skulls up there. I feel like he might become a 4th pretty soon. Alright. Yeah, if anybody's looking for something fun and they want to support Daniel, I don't know when Daniel's streaming next. He might be streaming today. We might even stop off and visit him. Wonderful person, incredible artist. I can't think of a better person to get in there and support. Ancient Symphony says painting handle. Yes, this is a painting handle. It is a Wrathcore painting handle. Steven makes the finest handle in the land. Orthober Studios is a streamer. He makes an incredible handle as well. Nice, good grip, good size handle. If you have a shakes, it can help out quite a bit to have something a little larger to hang on to. Try and get a little better coverage. I'm realizing we gotta fix these little knots here. We'll get to that in a moment. Probably not today. Do that off camera. Tidy that up. A little bit of business down there. I think this will be our last little piece for the morning. There we are. There we are. Bear with. Yep, I thought so. Let's see if I can thread this without just everything I could possibly bump is gonna not really cover well, so it'll be involved if I have to touch something up at this point. Let's see. Did I get it? Ooh, nearly. Ooh, nearly. We're good now. Look at that. One more little touch up and we're done. We got Kalami84. Good afternoon, I think. Nagaraki refers to the metal support which goes from the base to a little above the figure's head. It's a gray skull alone way to support. So we have this gray support here. Then you have your symbol. And then you have a cross T. You see. And then the skulls posted up on that. Is that correct? Hopefully. Was it a lamppost? Oh, this piece. So, ignore my density, the metal thing on the handle. So this arm comes in different sizes. You can get it, for example, you see how this one has a smaller one? That is me. I am sorry. It is early and I'm focused on something else. So what this does is allows me to grip the thing like this, or if I'm trying to paint and I want to, I can rest my arm on it, you see. Well, Ray, you're going to get a chance to win it soon. you along with the rest of the subs. Helps if you paint the whole thing, huh? But yeah, so the little skull comes off, and then this slides up, and then you can take this off. You can remove it to make different sized pieces. Clammy84, thank you so much for that follow. The little skull just keeps everything up there looking nice. That's all. Ray says, I never win your raffles. It's why I commissioned you, so I can actually have a piece. This is only the second one. You could win it. That'd be crazy. He'd be winning too. Double the wins. Well, wouldn't be double wins, but double the pieces. Bolden up this highlight here. I think he's done. We're gonna fix these little wraps here that I overpainted before. A little bit under there. Oops. I think I already tidied these up. We tidied him up. That ought to be that. That is one white scar done. He needs based and he'll be good to go. Ready for our drawing. The other thing that this particular grip has is it's a cork insert. So just like that, he's ready to get placed into his base. Couldn't be any easier. And yeah, just to finish showing this off before we go, just like that. And then you can just bend the bars off the base. I sometimes paint without it because sometimes that's what it calls for, like depending on the piece you're working on. But you have those options. It's all up to what you're working on. Super flexible in that respect. Maybe it'll be this one. Could look cool. I'll put the smaller cage on her. She'll be ready to go. This size. Over 60 says, question, no matter what I do, I always miss a mold line. Do you clean and then paint over the spot? Nakaruki says, perfect, thank you. I'm glad I could finally answer your question after 3 people tried to further explain it to me. I'm so sorry about that. Over 60, what it tends to be for me is you do your best to clean up the mold lines and then prime. When you prime, then you can go back through and you want to then go through your refinement stage with cleaning them up and then touch up your primer. If you find them later, you just have to ask yourself, how bad is it? You know, is it worth the effort? And it usually is, but you just gotta, they're always gonna hide on you. For me, I constantly find the mold lines down the road, and the more closer you get to like wanting to do a competition piece or something to that effect, the harder it's going to be. Like, you're going to want to go back through and you're going to want to sand and you're going to want to gap fill and you're going to want to do some advanced things like that. And so yeah, it stinks and it is hard to want to go back over your paint, but at that stage, you have to do it then. Otherwise, you're never gonna, I don't know, you're gonna be looking at a mold line forever. And I just find that if I don't do it, I regret it, and then that's even worse for me. What do you think, Gregersman? Is this our next piece to paint? This shield hangs down below her foot, and so we're gonna have to put a pin in her, I think. But yeah, then I can hold like this, rest my palm when I go to paint. It's an interesting little grip. I enjoy them greatly. But yeah, we are very, very late. Let's go find a raid target. Who are we passing this party off to? Yeah, Daniel's on. Let's go see Daniel. We've been talking a lot about Daniel. He's a good dude. He's back to the streaming a little more consistently. Over 60 says, time to go. Have to work tomorrow night. Have the happy and stay safe. You as well. Nakaruki, thank you so much. Let's start this raid. We'll get it rolling out. Ray says, don't leave us. Me? You want me to stay? Ray, we got to work, you know. We keep the studio lights on. You all do a great job of helping and supporting me, but I gotta do my part, you know. Can't crowdfund everything. But yes, now that this is done, I got one more project to wrap up. I'm probably doing that off stream, and then we're going to be making some more progress with purple non-metallics and purple flesh tones. Yeah, it's like Mad Max out there. Stay home. No doubt, Ray. Gearing up for it, huh? All right, everybody. We're going to go check out Daniel's stream. If you're in here and you have those sweet, sweet emotes, spam them. Let them know that I said, Daniel, what's up? And if anybody's interested or new, we stream Monday, Thursday, Friday, same time each day. And Monstercraft says, my models don't stay on the table long enough to care about mold lines. There you go. All right, everybody. Have a beautiful start to your week, and we'll catch you later on down the line.